First one, what advice can you give to developers?
Be interesting. Do interesting things, travel, see the world, have friends over for dinner, dance, learn to play an instrument, do something other than just work, because life is short, and the more interesting things you do, the more interesting ideas you'll get for your games.
What sort of benefits can people get from the workshop that you do?
Which one? The game design workshop at GDC?
Yeah.
Well, the core idea of the workshop is that you can use this vocabulary that we've developed. Mark LeBlanc and several of your other instructors have worked on it for many years to describe and analyze and then solve game design problems. And we usually use paper games as an example, but you can use digital games as well. So it's to create a vocabulary for talking about design problems.
What sort of age would you say that is possibly too young or too old to start game development and game design?
You can make a game up when you're old enough to talk. You can tell people what rules are, and as long as you can keep track of who's who and what the score is, you're ready to go. So I really feel like the minute that you're verbal, you can design games.
Rather than smacking your head against walls and binging on bacon, is there any sort of stress relief that you find? Or...
I love gardening, actually. I do a lot of gardening. Yeah, I spend a lot of time in my garden in the morning, especially before work, because then I'm in kind of a zen place when I get to the office.
When was it? What made you realise that gaming was sort of the thing you wanted to work with?
It was just a series of strange events. I was interested in robotics and AI, and then I went to this AI conference, and I met Will Wright and some other game designers, and listening to them and chatting with them, I just realized that that was my calling. Put in for a job in The Sims, just trying to make it happen.
Was it? Yeah.
Well, it was actually The Sims 2 was my first game. Yeah,
I don't know.
I worked on first. Yeah, it was the best job. It was just play The Sims and make objects all day. It was really cool, and everyone was really fun, and it was a really good team. They were good people.
For inspiration, particularly in Journey, we noticed it looked very much like a Ghibli sort of thing. I mean, is there anywhere in particular you look for?
What we try to do is create this feeling of the sense of awe and wonder, and when people compare the game to Studio Ghibli's work or that Team Eco and things like that, we're really flattered because we feel like they're experts at creating that kind of an environment. And so if we're doing something that reminds you of them, then we're doing something right.
Okay. What's your favourite platform for video games?
I actually really love to play games on the DS. I was really into the DS for a long time, especially when I had a commute. Now I usually ride my bike or drive a car, which means I don't get to play games on the way to work anymore. I have a very short commute. But I still really love, I loved playing imported Japanese games on the DS. It's like, nothing has really quite surpassed it. I'd say a close second would be playing imported Japanese games on my Japanese PS1.
Do you feel there's any sexism in the video game industry at all?
Well, I mean, there's sexism everywhere, that's just a fact of life. And the same way that there's racism and, people are ageist and there's, classism. It's just one of the things that people do to put themselves over others, and it's unfortunate. And the games industry is no exception.
That's fair enough. In terms of, favourite video games, I forgot to ask before, what would you say your favourite video game was?
My favourite video game of all time is definitely Katamari Damacy. My license plate is KATAMR1, so I am a super fan of that game, and I've been really lucky because Kate and I have had a long correspondence over many years, and he's just an awesome, amazing game designer. He inspires me in everything that he does. He's great. Yeah, he's awesome. He's just a powerhouse of creativity.
What's your favourite game that you've actually worked on yourself?
Oh, I guess it would have to be Journey. It's crazy to say that, but it's the closest thing to a real work of art that I've ever had the opportunity to participate in. And there's so much of each one of us in the game itself. It was really, truly a long and fruitful collaboration with a lot of people. I'm really, really, really proud of the team. I think they've done a fantastic job. They're really amazing.
Okay. You got an award, I believe, for dynamic game difficulty, or some sort of...
I'm not sure that I did. I got an award for game design from the Women in Games group a while back.
Yeah, I heard about that one. Did you do some research in dynamic video game difficulty?
I did do. I'm finishing a thesis in dynamic game adjustment. Yeah, and And yeah, so that's sort of how I ended up getting into the games industry, was working on that research and then talking to people about it. What I realized was the research was fun, but designing the environment for the research was much more fun, so that's how I became a game designer.
That's fair. At what point does a game give up in sort of, dynamic difficulty? Because it's about, how the game develops the player's skills. So I know there's some really good players out there, like there's one called Kyle Trainer, I know personally, who's extremely good at it. Is there a point when the game just sort of gives up on itself?
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess you'd have to ask someone who'd worked on something that shipped that was really solid, like, for example, the Left 4 Dead system. I don't know if there's a point where it just can't beat you or can't get harder. They pretty much know everything that you're doing at any given time, so depending on how much they cheat, I'm sure they could make your life real miserable.
How's the whole company getting on? I mean, that game company, is it doing all dandy?
Well, I mean, it's, we're towards the end of the project. Everyone is really excited, but also a little bit worried. There's always that big list of things we want to get done. But I'd say we're holding up pretty good.
Might not know the answer to this one. Where did the name actually come from?
Oh, it's actually kind of a funny story. Kelly and Genova, when they were founding the company, were spending a lot of time talking with an influential sort of professor and industry person at the university named Ben Gordon, and he kept calling Katamari Damacy that garbage game, because the idea was you were sort of a dung beetle rolling up garbage, and they thought that was so funny. So then he would say, I guess that Cloud was that Cloud game, so eventually when they decided to make a company, they just said that game company, because they thought it was sort of a funny joke. It's a long name to type into a browser, so what Kelly always says is, she didn't have a lot of experience naming companies, and so it was her first shot, and maybe, maybe they could have done better, but it's stuck, so
it's
here it is. It certainly is, yeah. For
choices, because I know the whole sort of objective with certain games that you've worked on is sort of like the amount of choices you can have. I mean, is there a point when you think it's too much?
Well, if you're in an environment and you feel like you're not sure you did the right thing and you don't know where to go next, then yeah, maybe it's a little too open-ended. But sometimes that feeling is okay, because it means that when you do discover where you should go next, or you do find something to do that you find engaging and feel really smart, so it's a fine line.
With Journey, just tell us a bit more about it, because walking around in a desert doesn't really sound too appealing.
At this point we really want the game to speak for itself. It'll be out pretty soon, so...
Is it spring, sorry?
Spring of 2012. We're really excited to have the game come out. And it's a journey where you're on an adventure, heading to the mountain, and you may cross paths with a stranger. There's no voice chat, there's no text chat, so it's totally safe, and it's totally anonymous. And if you cross paths with a stranger, you might walk for a while together, you might separate, it's really up to you. So the journey is really about how you approach the task of getting to the mountain, and there's some history to be discovered in the world.
Have you thought that with gamers and their nature, because they can't actually talk to each other, might just not actually argue and just skip that and all turn off the PS3 simultaneously in a sort of rage? Or
so far people have been pleasantly surprised by playing with another character. Sometimes they're not sure if it's a person or not, which is kind of interesting, so I'm curious to see what gamers are going to think of it.
Is there a single player sort of
only if you just don't sign into the PS3. So if you're signed into PSN, then you're going to be playing online.
Okay. Richard Lemachard, probably pronounced his name wrong, but lead designer of Naughty Dog. There you go. Lead designer from Naughty Dog said that in Uncharted they had a lot of difficulty with the sand mechanic. Did you experience any issues with Journey?
No, really, actually, the game was designed around the sand mechanic, so for us it wasn't a problem. The only problems we've ever had have been with people sort of hoarding cloth pieces because they feel ownership over them, but we've managed to design around that finally, so for the most part. But yeah, the sand was never really a problem. Sometimes it's hard to implement. I mean, it was definitely technically difficult to get it right, but no, actually it's been one of the more joyful things about playing the game for a long time now, is just moving around in the sand and feeling it, and surfing, and gliding along, and just kind of feeling that deep movement. It's been really great.
Is there any chance that you'll build as a shrine? Or a bacon one? Everyone loves bacon.
No, there'll probably be no bacon shrines in Journey.
Did you know in the 80s there was a game called Journey based off the band?
Indeed, we have heard many times about it.
Really? I thought that was a unique question.
Yeah, no, in fact, it's something that everybody wants to know. And no, Don't Stop Believin' will not be featured in the game either.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.